Good evening and welcome. I'm Roy Blitzer and our show is Ask Dr. Business. The purpose of our time together this evening is to give you information and insight and data that will help make your work life a little more exciting and interesting and satisfying. The desired outcome is you're going to take some of the input and really make it work for you. This evening we're continuing our series on part-time jobs, and we're very fortunate to have a near ideal guest to help us understand what it's like to work part-time. And Sison is here with us. Right now, she is the creative director of her own organization called Menlo Media. But before doing that, she had worked part-time for 13 years for the same organization. So I will give you the phone number to call, and I'll hear her story. It's 650-856-1491. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm great to have you. I'd like you to please tell us a little bit about your background, where you studied, where you went to school, and give us a little history about how you got this 13-year gig.
Well, I'm a Northern California native, born and raised, and started up in Redding, California. From there, attended Chico State University, and then transferred to San Jose State University. Have a degree in graphic design.
Hence the creative director.
Hence the creative director. It's all come to fruition.
And then?
And then after graduating college with the degree, started working freelance jobs as a graphic designer in a variety of studios, and then also in-house for a tech company, Next Computer.
Good.
And then from there, worked freelance at a branding firm in downtown Palo Alto, which then ultimately led to a permanent hire position.
So you worked at this branding company. For how many years did you work before you went part-time?
I worked at that company for 7 years full-time.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And the total career was 23 years?
Yes. Yes.
We should have you here as loyalty rather than part-time. Okay, so tell me a little bit about what the differences were when you made that transition to go from full-time to part-time. Obviously, you were a successful employee or you wouldn't have been given that opportunity. Should we assume that?
Yes, I'd like to think so. Had a great time working there. Really enjoyed the challenges that it brought, the work I was doing, the people I was working with, a lot of very talented people, great clients.
Maybe we can even have you diverge a moment and tell us what the graphic designer or creative director did. What did you do with the job before you went part-time, and did you continue the same role? That would be an interesting way to start.
Sure. So my role transitioned actually during those 7 years. So I was brought in as a graphic designer, and it was a small firm at that point, and the firm was growing though. This was in the early to mid 90s, and in Palo Alto, Silicon Valley, our clients were technology local clients, so as you can imagine,
there was
a big
and
boom.
muffin stores on University.
There was a big boom going on, and we were very busy, growing very quickly. So I helped to actually grow the firm, and at the time, so then that naturally led to more of a management role. So moved into being a creative account director and managing the other designers and other creatives who were in the firm.
And the branding part takes the graphic design of the logo, helps with the tagline. Is that the kind of stuff that you would do normally?
Right. So it's really kind of soup to nuts, all of your company's image, and that includes visuals as well as words. So it really can start with a logo, and then over time that might be all of your marketing collateral, all of your print work, packaging if it's a product
Wow.
type of company, your website. So really your
Full service.
company's face across all of your branding.
While we're talking about full service, I want the audience to give you a full question. Remember, the phone number here is 650-856-1491. I'm here with Ann Sison, a creative director, who's talking about her job as a part-time graphic person, and she'll give you as many insights as you ask for. Please begin telling us a little bit about that transition. So you'd worked there 7 years, and then you...
Right, and had taken on many different roles while
like
I
you were
was
doing
there,
that, right.
as one of the early people in the firm. So then it was doing the recruiting for the firm, interviewing
Wow.
those other creatives, managing them, managing various groups within the firm, as well as managing clients.
Would a creative person have to bring you a portfolio?
Absolutely, right.
Okay, I assumed that, but I'm not sure if you were applying for a different... No, I guess everyone has to do a portfolio.
Right.
Okay.
That's the full package
So
with creatives.
you've been there and you wanted to work
And
part-time.
then, yes, so it was definitely brought about by an actual instance, and that was the birth of our first child.
Congratulations. And now
Thank
you
you.
have 3.
We now have 3 children, yes.
So your motivation to work part-time was generated by a desire to choose to spend more time at home.
Right. It was absolutely a personal decision. I tried, going back to my same role,
Oh, you did.
and it just wasn't, the satisfaction
Wasn't
was not
working.
there, no. So it was a personal decision to cut back my hours, and that naturally, and I completely understood it, meant that I needed to be in a different role.
And you talked a little bit during our prep time of the emotional difference was that for you. No
Yes.
longer were you the lead star,
Right.
or that people
The
don't
one
realize
setting
that
off the fireworks.
that's actually a very interesting... Was that difficult for you?
Yes. So I would say that change in my career and in my life, of course, all sorts of things are happening at the same
Sure.
time, right? You're now a parent and everything that goes with that. And I felt like I was not able to give the work what it needed, and my team what they needed, and at the same time wasn't doing what I needed to be doing at home. So I was unhappy and thought, something needs to change. And I was very fortunate in that the firm where I was working, that I was able to do that.
So
that
you went
they were open
from
to it.
probably 60 hours a week to 20 hours.
Right.
Okay, talk a little bit about what project work means and why that might be easier for a part-time employee, because I think that was a very good insight for me.
Right. So in creative work, there are a lot of different components in actually producing the work. So a lot of different hats need to be worn, whether they're all worn by the same person in different roles, or you actually have a team of different people specializing in different things.
So a team would be assigned a company or a project.
Right, or a project. And so you can then kind of tag in and tag out when you have a well-oiled machine and everybody's at the top of their game. That's the understanding, and that was actually the model for the firm.
Now, would you assume a different role with each team? That I didn't ask.
Potentially, right? Yes. So the teams are kind of ad hoc,
right?
And actually, even depending upon the fluidity of projects change, things happen, deadlines change, people move. It's a chess game. But yeah, so it's very exciting and dynamic, and but it is key with part-time work, because essentially you're all working part-time on projects, right?
Well, let me see if I can garner a question or two, because this is wonderfully fascinating to me. The phone number here is 650-856-1491. If you just tuned in, I'm Roy Blitzer. Our show is Ask Dr. Business, and I'm here interviewing Ann Sison from our perspective of part-time jobs. Tell me a little bit about the whole concept of how you manage to organize your day, because many of the people who've asked questions previously were concerned about whether your day was broken up and how you managed to structure, especially with 3 children and a project. You must be very organized.
Yes. So I would say by nature that I have that piece to me.
Which is
and
Employees love organized people.
yeah, you can count on them.
No, that's very true. You can.
And but also the nature of project work is, there's a deadline, there's a pretty clear process that you're going through with it, and it is such that you probably need to be working on it every single day.
Wow.
So the important thing was to be present in the office daily.
So you'd go in every day?
I would go in, yes,
It's a
5 days a week.
Wow.
Right. So I wouldn't be there all day. I would be there for half the day.
You have to coordinate that with all the other activities that your 3 kids had.
Right, right. So essentially I was there while the kids were in their school day. I was in my work day.
Now, one of the things that I'm interested in finding out, and we talked about this in our prep time, whether you thought the client base realized, obviously an old client that you had serviced full-time during those 7 years probably figured out, but I bet a new client would never know.
Right. I think that the also, so again, the way that we would structure work at the firm is there is always a team in place. So it was never, and that was all very transparent to them and by design, that at any given time, they didn't have to talk to me.
Got it.
Anybody on the team could have told them what's going on, what's coming next, passed on the information, and kept that ball rolling.
That's very creative. I did some work on self-directed and self-managing teams,
Right.
and that was very effective.
Right.
Volvo did that, and Allstate Insurance. You
Right.
could call anyone. In the
Right.
old days, you couldn't.
And get an answer.
That's right.
Right. So, and so everybody always knows enough of what's going
now,
on.
does that mean your communications with your team, there wasn't Salesforce.com at that
No.
time, so you had no central way to tell everybody.
No.
How did you do that?
Strong communication skills.
Very good. Those are 2 things.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's part of, I always do advocate people who are going into graphic design and marketing communications, branding, whatever the flavor of the day is of what you want to call it. I do advocate for 4-year colleges for that full rounded experience, and I think that that really served me well.
And
to
during your
have that.
hiring time, what if someone asked you, do you hire part-time workers? What would you say?
So we would not bring in somebody part-time to
Right
begin
away.
with for almost any role. There, for the most part, no. You need to come in full-time. Just so, and I did that as well, right before I went to part-time. I was at the same firm
Right.
even for
A long time.
a long time, proving myself right before I went to part-time. But if you're an independent,
Like a
freelancer,
right.
then
They test you
yes.
out.
Well, or so you're not working for somebody unless you're working on a contract
Right.
basis. But then oftentimes, so that is the beauty of graphic design work, is that it can be project-based.
Yeah.
So,
I think the lesson for today is the project-based work could lean towards part-time employment.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me see if I can get a call in here for us. The phone number here is 650-856-1491. We're here with Ann Sison, who's giving us very good information on the life of a part-time worker. Now, when you talked a little bit about the transition of losing a little bit of that status and, now I'll say the word power, but influence, was there ever an opportunity to make that up, or was that only something that comes with a full-time job? I think it probably just comes, but I wanted to hear what you think. What do you think?
No, I think, toward the end of the of the 13 years that I was there. So maybe by another 7,
Okay, that's a very good
I had
point.
gained that back. So I had gained back the ability, I think, and that was with working with clients part-time, to then be able to go in and pitch business,
So you sold
get new
business too?
business,
Whoa, I'm very impressed.
and basically run that client. So they don't know any different, right?
No,
But I
they
do,
don't.
but I think that it does at the firm that you're at. I think it is an adjustment, certainly, for everybody else to then feel that confidence, especially if you're working in a high pressure,
Exactly, and especially in the
deadline-related.
valley, et cetera. I'm also fascinated because it occurred to me that even if, as a part-time worker, you were probably doing a lot more than many people would who work 20 hours a week. And let's say your client wants to have a branding meeting on the day your kid's a star of the school musical.
Right.
You have control to say, well, that's not a good day. Can we get another one? I guess I'm not quite.
Well, again, so we would still, even though it was my client that I was responsible for, it was up to me then, how am I going to make sure that that client is happy if I'm not there? So
Fascinating.
So
That's
then it
very
takes
clever.
that, grooming and mentoring of the team as well as the client. So everybody's comfortable. It's not a
Well,
problem.
that's to your credit. We talked a little bit about being organized. We talked a little bit about being a good communicator. What other skills do you think you need to be an effective part-time worker or even an effective graphic designer that will add to the breadth of your wonderful experience?
I think you need to be very flexible,
Thank you. I think that's a good one.
right? You need to be very flexible, very open-minded, and a real problem solver. So definitely a lot of conflict comes up daily, honestly, in that type of work.
And
There's
it
always
could
something.
also come up. I've done some work with people who share a job, and that's the real issue. Yeah, they don't get the information quick enough to what happened during the day. I think the technology has made that easier. You can now go on and read what happened at a meeting, and you couldn't do that before.
Right.
You'd have to do that orally.
Right. So, but it does.
Flexibility is
but
a big
still,
one.
I think being in the office, and because I would need to hand things off so that things were taken care of while I was gone, before I came back in the next day. So, so that face-to-face interaction, you can't just rely on email and
I agree.
software.
Talk a little bit about the fact that you didn't have much of a commute, and that when your kids were asleep, you went back in at night. See, I think that is a fascinating way to handle the situation.
Right. So, again, it's very much a deadline-driven business, and it's a creative business. So, and you're working with a lot of people on it. So, if I had commitments I had to get to and take care of at home, there was always a plan for how am I going to get back to this, and that the team could count on me that I would be able to, I'm not going to leave them holding the bag. So, there's a lot of trust and.
Well, that's another good quality, that you need to be able to be very trusting.
Right.
Now, we didn't talk about this, but what if there's an issue? What if there's a problem with the team? Do you, as a person who's not there all the time, have the same input to make it better as the person who's the full-time person there all the time? Is there any distinction in between whether they perceive you as being as 100% committed as somebody? I guess I wonder if the feedback is different if it comes from you or if it comes from somebody who's at the organization all the time. What do you think?
Right. I think, again, part of that is I had a lot of experience,
That's
a
right.
lot of
You were
years.
there.
I had seniority.
No, you did. 20, that's a long time. So that may be a unique situation.
Right. And the backing of others there.
Right.
So there were, the majority of the people who worked there had worked there for several years.
Okay, well,
So there was a great relationship that we all had and would count on each other. But certainly there were always new people coming in, and I did a lot of that mentoring of the new people. And so you do groom them and the importance
could
of the
you
team.
select your own team?
Well,
Or how did
it
that
was
work?
ad hoc, so
Got
it
it.
really depends on who's available and what the deadlines are, and got to make it all work. So it is kind of playing Tetris daily.
Right. Speaking of making it all work, I feel like the shopping network again, soliciting a phone call. 650-856-1491 is our number here. The show is Ask Dr. Business if you're tuning in, and our series is Part-Time Jobs, and Ann Sison is doing a brilliant job giving information and insight, so please call in and see if you can test our expert on the part-time job world. Now let's talk a little bit about workload. You were obviously paid for those 20 hours. If you wanted to give us an honest assessment, tell how many hours you must have put in significantly more. And I think it's very hard to manage. That's one of the difficulties of part-time work. You're always, if you're deadline driven and conscientious, then you're basically probably putting in, how often would you say you put in more than 20 hours a week? Or were you good at that?
I don't know. Yeah, I think if you love what you're doing,
Well, that's true.
you're not punching a clock, so.
Well, and also you were a former management position, so you know that you can't punch a clock.
Right.
Now, the other thing that I'm fascinated by is if you think that the workforce, and we didn't talk about this, is more conducive. We do have a phone call.
Oh,
Isaiah,
great.
this is Dr. Business. How can we help you?
Hello?
Isaiah, we can hear you. What is your question?
Hi, I wanted to see what were some of the challenges that she had to go through, starting her business, especially being part-time.
Okay, that's a good question. I think her business now is full-time, but let's hear some of the challenges of what it was like making the transition back from a part-time worker to your own firm. Thank you. I like that question, and I'm glad you brought it up.
I think the biggest challenge for me was just getting over the mental hurdle of not working for someone, but it's all going to be on me.
Right.
And not knowing, I was very comfortable in working part-time for the same firm. I'd been there for many years and
you were a
was
star,
very
I can
comfortable
tell.
in it, and I knew what I was doing. So I was very fortunate in that I had a lot of people telling me I could do this, and it was really for me to get into the mindset of having a business. So I've never been really a financials kind of a person. So that, for me, honestly, was the biggest hurdle.
Well, I'm going to build on Isaiah's question if I can. Did you do a business plan?
I did
do
not.
You did not.
No.
Did you set any goals about how many clients you needed?
No.
Well, and you are very bold.
It's just doing the work. So, and that was what I learned from my career was you do great work, you don't disappoint people, and you make it so that nobody could ever say anything bad about you, right?
Right.
So
You want a clean rep.
all of the work that we did was referral, and all the work that I continue to do is referral work. So I count on.
Isaiah, does that help you? Did that help answer your question?
That was an awesome answer. Thank you.
Thank you for calling, and good luck to you in your career. I want to build on the concept of going from, even if it's perceptually 20 hours, you're working, you have to go back and work those crazy hours again. Was that difficult? Even though your kids are still home.
I do, but they're
more adult now.
teenagers.
Teenagers, right.
So they're clearly much more self-sufficient. It's absolutely easier when your kids are older.
But do you find that the time is equally well spent, know that it's your time versus, because I think that when you're in your business yourself, you you have a fine line between how you market your materials and how much
Right.
work you do.
Right.
And I think that the former measure was that it's 65% marketing, and 35% work. Do you
Right.
find that now, or are you probably getting more established? You've been in your own firm now for 3 years?
Yes. So it's probably more 50-50.
50-50.
So,
Okay,
right.
that's fair.
So a lot of meeting people, and I don't have the firm reputation
Right.
behind me, right? I'm standing out on the stage by myself.
But I can tell
But-
after tonight you'll do great. Let's say someone comes to you
Yes.
and wants to work part-time. What advice would you give them? They see you on TV, they can see that you're a smashingly articulate and very professionally grounded professional. What would you tell them if they want to work part-time? Would you ask why first? I don't know if that's appropriate, can you?
I guess I'm assuming that this is somebody asking me on a personal basis,
or a
right?
personal basis, or I think the answer you gave when they want a job is very clear, that you need
Right.
to get there first and do your job. But what if they come
Right.
to you, say, come on a personal basis? What would you say?
I think that you really have to be incredibly flexible. So you have to be willing to have a lot of trade-offs in order to work part-time. You may have to go further, have a bit more of a commute. You may have to work in an entirely different area,
Interesting.
industry.
Right.
I think you have to be very open-minded and think about what it is you're really good at.
And focus on that.
And focus on that. And it does not have to be, a lot of people ask me, so what in the branding communications that you do, what industry or market do you specialize in? And I say I don't, because it is the process of branding and the thinking behind it that goes into any industry, right? It's not specific to high tech. It's not specific to law firms. It's not
It's a very
specific,
good answer, too, I think.
right? So understand what you're very good at and what you have to offer, and you can then apply that to many more different areas. You don't have to stay siloed within a particular
I think that's great
industry.
advice. And one of the things that I'm going to have I'm having a gentleman come on next month, and I'm fascinated to find out if I would imagine there are more females that work part-time than males, but I bet that will be changing in the future, because I think with more emphasis on parenting and taking more involvement,
Right.
gentlemen that will try
Right.
to work part-time as well.
Right. And it can be very interesting. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of project-based work.
And I'll tell them that too, to work on a project.
You can work with people in many more diverse areas on things that if you were working full-time in a single company, you may not have that exposure.
Believe it or
depending on
not,
the-
our time is up.
Oh, goodness, that went fast.
It did, and I want to thank you, and I want to thank our people for watching, and I want to thank Isaiah for calling. We're on next month, the day after Valentine's Day, February 15th. Tune in, and you'll hear what it's like to work part-time for a university. Thank you for listening. Happy New Year, and that's the end of our show.
Thank you.